All right, nice start to the year for San Diego State this past Saturday in week 0. My name is John Schaefer. This is the Aztec wrap-up show. As you make your way here, whether it's live or on replay, please subscribe here on Content for Aztec fans, covering football and men's basketball. We told you really all week leading up to this opener against Ohio University how critically important this game potentially was going to be for San Diego State, really for a couple of reasons. One of which was San Diego State's schedule to start the year, which has some real big tests and hurdles ahead still for the Aztecs. And by winning week 1, you can really forecast a scenario where San Diego State can put themselves in good position. I think if they would have lost week 1, it would have been a really uphill battle potentially for the Aztecs. When you look at what's to come, UCLA at home, not next week, but the week after, Oregon State and Corvallis. Then you still have, of course, Boise State at home and then Air Force. Those are your first 6 games. I mean, Ohio won 10 games last year. Then Idaho State should be a win this upcoming weekend. Coaching staff obviously is not going to say that. But for me, Idaho State FCS program, San Diego State hopefully takes care of business. It is a bit of a trap, right, between your opener, a 10-win team, and UCLA. But San Diego State certainly good enough to beat Idaho State. They did a year ago. And then the real tests begin. Oregon State in Corvallis, potentially a top 15 team at that point. Boise State at home, always, capable of being a top 25 caliber or one of the better teams in the Mountain West. Then Air Force picked to finish second in the league here in 2023. So if you're here, by the way, please subscribe. Year-round content for Aztec fans. If you're here, would love to see you in the chat as well. I'll pull up some of these comments as we get into it. Your reaction to San Diego State's victory over Ohio. This thing was far from a given heading in. When you consider really all the changes San Diego State had offensively and defensively. Ryan Lindley, the new offensive coordinator, replacing Jesse Matthews and Tyrell Shavers. I thought we saw some really good plays in the receiving game from San Diego State after a bit of a slow start. Jalen Mayden got going with the late first half, actually the final play of the first half, touchdown reception to Mark Redman, completely flipping the game with all that momentum into the locker room. And then, in the second half, Redman had his second touchdown reception as well. We saw some of the younger receivers get opportunities. Balin Brooks, a couple of grabs in that victory. Mekhi Shaw, I thought, had a couple of good grabs for San Diego State. The tailbacks really were impressive, weren't they? I mean, what we saw specifically in the second half from San Diego State running the football, I thought was really, really encouraging. Jalen Armstead kind of saying, feed me at times there in the third quarter. 8 carries for 78 yards. I mean, 8 carries, 78 yards is an average of about 10 yards per carry. Keenan Christian had moments early and late for San Diego State. And at the end of the game, Jalen Mayden's final line is a very good one. He did not turn the ball over. San Diego State was +2 in this game. Mayden 17 of 27, 164 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks. You're going to win a lot of games with that type of quarterback play. Did he throw for 300 yards? No. But I think there's a lot of room for improvement. He's got this, again, young receiving group, not with the veteran Mark Redman, who had 5 catches, 62 yards and 2 touchdowns, but Mekhi Shaw, returner, 3 catches. Balin Brooks, the freshman, 2 catches. Keenan Christian out of the backfield, a couple of catches. Cam Davis out of the backfield, a couple of catches. Breon Penny had a big catch late in this game. Jay Rudolph, the tight end, had a couple of receptions as well for San Diego State. So I thought that was encouraging. Again, 20 points. Is it their highest total they're going to have this year? Of course not. But to get a couple of touchdowns, to get the offense going late in the first half, keep it going a little bit there in the second half, I think is encouraging. And then defensively, I thought they really played well, especially when you consider the start where Ohio, for a brief period of time, was kind of moving up and down the field. Their first drive at 81 yards stopped at San Diego State's 2-yard line. They settled for a field goal. And then the Aztecs knocked Curtis Rourke out of the game. And maybe that changed the game. Although C.J. Harris last year was very competent. He started the last couple of games for Ohio, both wins. He beat Wyoming in a bowl game, dual threat guy. And they really did well against C.J. Harris. 18 of 42 in this game. Threw for 203 yards, but a touchdown to 3 interceptions. Could have been 4. San Diego 103-yard return from Marcus Ratcliffe. The freshman called back. Otherwise, they probably wins this game 26. But defensively, there were a lot of really good signs in this game. They got pressure. Cody Moon, defensive player of the week, Mountain West. 3 Mountain West teams played, but Cody Moon had 12 tackles in this game. Sedarius Barfield played really well. San Diego State's veteran secondary was impressive. And yeah, Ohio was able to move the football a little bit. Ohio outgained SDSU in this game, 380 309. But the Aztecs won in that critical area, the turnover battle, and the difference maybe punching it in a couple of times. Aztecs getting that touchdown late in the first half, getting a touchdown in the second half. Ohio scored late, made things interesting, got the ball back down 20-13. Aztecs eventually picking off CJ Harris and winning it by a score of, again, 20-13. All right, so John Schaefer with you here on the wrap-up show. We're gonna hang out for the next 20 or 30 minutes or so. If you're here, please say hello. Please comment in the chat. Let me know where you're watching from as we react to a Game 1 win and look ahead to Game 2 against Idaho State, and then further ahead to that huge game coming up at Snapdragon Stadium a week from Saturday against UCLA at 4:30. Do want to thank Michael for commenting here. Says, great to see the wrap-up show back. Go Aztecs. Thank you, Michael, for contributing here this morning. Also, Daniel, thank you for commenting. He says, did you watch the broadcast back? I felt the announcers were quite biased against the Aztecs. It's funny. My wife literally was like, why are you watching this game back? So, yes, I did watch the game back. I didn't feel that way at all, to be honest with you, Daniel. I thought Tim Brando did a good job. I thought that in general, they did a nice job. FS1 announcers on site. I thought some of the like cutaways of City of San Diego, overheads of Snapdragon Stadium. I thought they did a good job. I thought they were pretty complimentary of Brady Hoke. I thought they detailed their conversations with Ryan Lindley and Kurt Maddox a lot. I thought they were complimentary of Jalen Mayden, San Diego State's success defensively. So I don't know if anyone else felt that way. I thought it was pretty reasonable and fair. I think they were fair to Ohio as well. I thought they were pretty good, considering that this wasn't, it's a group of 5 matchup between a program out of the Mountain West and a program out of the MAC that don't meet often, right? This wasn't some rivalry game. This was maybe as good of a game as there was in week 0 when you looked at that schedule. There were a couple of decent games on Saturday night. I thought Hawaii was a really good game. Hawaii played extremely well, had a chance to tie it on their final possession before throwing a pick. There was a good Conference USA game on Saturday night as well. I thought San Jose State did well enough against USC as a 31-point underdog. Had that game, I think, 14 all, 20-14. So I thought the Mountain West actually performed pretty well. San Diego State covering against Ohio by 7. They could have won by 21 if not for that roughing the passer penalty that overturned Marcus Radcliffe's 103-yard return. Hawaii was a huge dog, something like 18-point dog to Vanderbilt. They were annihilated by Vanderbilt last year on the Islands, I think 63-10, and they lost that game 45-28. I think that's encouraging for the Mountain West. And San Jose State has a good offense, and I think that was on display at the Coliseum this weekend. Their defense, well, you're taking on SC, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, all the weapons that SC has on offense, but I think San Jose State has a chance to once again be pretty decent in the league as well. Let's see here. Max, thank you for the comment. He says probably the best broadcasters we'll have all year. We'll see. I mean, we're going to get the nationally televised CBS game coming up, not this weekend, but next. This will be CBS Sports Network. I haven't seen the crew as of yet for Idaho State. It is nationally televised, which is great news because a year ago, I was actually in the call with J.R. Culver for this game. We streamed this game. This was the one game a year ago at Snapdragon, and the entire season that was not nationally televised for San Diego State. But when you look at the schedule this year, everything's nationally televised, including Saturday against Idaho State, which was not a guarantee, by the way. This is a full slate of games. This is week 1 now. You've got the full slate of games. So to get a nationally televised game against an FCS opponent for the Aztecs, I think speaks to what they've been able to accomplish over the last handful of years, Rocky Long and Brady Hoke. And then 4:30 next Saturday, UCLA is a huge opportunity, obviously, for the Aztecs, assuming they can get to that game with a record of 2-0. We know the Aztecs won at the Rose Bowl a couple of years ago. Chip Kelly just announced today, I tweeted out, let's see, that it won't be Dante Moore, the 5-star recruit that starts week 1 for them against Coastal Carolina. It's going to be Ethan Garbers, who was at Washington. He played high school football with Mark Redman and then went to Washington with Mark Redman. Of course, Redman coming off this massive game for the Aztecs, 2 touchdowns. One of just 3 Aztec tight ends to have 2 or more touchdowns in a game since 1996. Incredibly, this past weekend against Ohio University. So it'll be Ethan Garbers week 1 against Coastal Carolina. Maybe depending on how he plays, it'll either be Garbers or presumably Dante Moore next Saturday at 4:30 on CBS. We'll see what that crew is next Saturday against UCLA. Another comment here from Max. And again, guys, if you're here, please subscribe. We have year-round content for Aztecs fans. We're breaking down a week one, or actually a week zero win for the Aztecs over the Ohio University Bobcats at Snapdragon Stadium. Max says, looked to me like the coaches had some good halftime adjustments and the players looked very motivated coming out in the second half. There were a couple of big moments in the second half, Max, and I agree with you. Um, Ohio had a short missed field goal. San Diego State was able to put together a pretty long scoring drive there in the second half as well. And then remember late in the game, San Diego State on the Ohio 35-yard line after a Bobcats failed onside kick, San Diego State elected to go for it on about 4th and 3. They ran it for maybe a yard. And Ohio didn't have the shortest field in the world, but they were 65 yards away with about 55 seconds to play, no timeouts, and they got to down to the 33-yard line of the Aztecs with 11 seconds to play, and theoretically a couple of cracks at the end zone, and they never got the second crack because the final play for Ohio offensively was intercepted. But this wasn't, this wasn't some, easy stroll to the end for the Aztecs. Yeah, they led 20-6. It felt they might be able to hold on for a 20-6 win, but Ohio, to their credit, put together a touchdown drive there. It took 3 or 4 minutes, though. They took a little more time than they probably should have to score. It came after that 103-yard touchdown was overturned, and they couldn't get the onside kick. But again, I think if you get a better break, and if they don't call a roughing the passer on that play from Cody Boone, just a tad high, then the Aztecs probably win the game 27-6. But I think there's a lot to be learned also in winning close games because this much we know. San Diego State's always going to be in close games. Their defense keeps them in games. And then obviously, look back at a year ago. Look at some of the wins they had a year ago. Hawaii, Toledo, final drive wins, losses, Fresno State, the bowl game, close losses, right? So you're not expecting every game to be a 10-point win or a 10-point loss. In fact, I'd expect out of these 12 games that San Diego State's involved in, 8 one-possession games. They've been involved in one already. We'll see about Idaho State. Hopefully not. Hopefully the Aztecs have success against Idaho State. But they could absolutely be involved in something like 7, 8, 9 one-possession games potentially here in 2023. But really, a lot to like. When you look at it, I think room for improvement. I heard Brady Hoke post-game with Ben Fletcher on San Diego Sports 760. He was on Big Rich TD and Fletch on San Diego Sports 760 this morning as well. And I think he's encouraged by what he saw, but I think he's also excited because of the potential for growth out of his team. And he always talks about the difference between week 1 and week 2, or game 1 and 2, being the areas of growth for a football team. And there's a lot of growth potential with this offense. 309 total yards, an average of 5.3 yards per play. Aztecs offensively only ran 58 plays to Ohio's 84. So San Diego State's defense was out there for 84 plays. And you look at the yards discrepancy and say, wow, Ohio, outplayed San Diego State, but yards per play, Ohio actually was only 4.5 yards per play. San Diego State was 5.3. And the big difference in this game was turnovers. And the big, play in this game, I think, was knocking out the quarterback. It wasn't the intent, obviously, but Curtis Rourke coming off the ACL goes down. I think maybe the concussion-like symptoms might have had something to do with that knee. He had been really efficient in the first half. 8 of 10, 75 yards, had a chance to touchdown throw from the 2-yard line on their first drive, that slant that was broken up by Sedarius Barfield beautifully. So Rourke leaves, Harris came in. I don't think that alone was the reason why San Diego State won the game, because in the week leading up to the game, Brady Hoke, Kurt Maddox had both said publicly they were preparing for both quarterbacks. They thought there'd be a package of plays, if not series, for CJ Harris. And I thought Harris at times was really good. He was nimble with his feet. He had some really accurate throws. In the end, 18 of 42 isn't good enough. And that's because you're facing San Diego State, and an elite defense potentially. I think a young defense, but a defense that really started to, separate a little bit there in the second half. And I think the defense, there's a lot of room for improvement as well. A lot of new parts, specifically, in that front six, so to speak, of the 3-3-5. But Aztecs a year ago, I want to say we're -5 in turnovers. Ohio a year ago was +12, and San Diego State was +2 on Saturday. And we know the formula for San Diego State: outrush the opponent, hold the ball for 30+ minutes, and be +1 or better. And they win a lot when they're +1 or better. And I want to say they've won 17 consecutive games when winning the turnover battle. So let me find the note. Let's see, San Diego State. has actually won 31 consecutive games. So listen to this, San Diego State's won 31 consecutive games when forcing 3 or more turnovers, and they've won 17 straight with committing fewer turnovers than their opponent, and they're 22 under Brady Hoke when they do that. I also mentioned Mark Redman, who's just the 3rd Aztec tight end since at least 1996 with 2 touchdown catches in a game. The other is the late Escobar. He did it 3 times from 2011 to 2012, and Collie Waring, he did that in Reno against Nevada back in 2018. All right, let me continue here in the chat with some of the comments that are coming in. We're reacting to San Diego State's victory over the Ohio Bobcats on Saturday at Snapdragon Stadium. A really gorgeous day for football in Mission Valley. Kevin, thank you. He says top 2 receivers, Wesley and Nicholson, didn't play, did they? Let me see if I can find this. Probably won't be easy for me to do on the fly in terms of participants or not. I don't think I can find participants. I can't answer that, Kevin. What I can say is that Mekhi Shaw actually was listed as a starter as well. Uh, Obviously, Balin Brooks we knew about. He ended up playing a lot. I don't know if Wesley played or not. That's a good question. I don't know if Wesley or Nicholson played or not. Let me see if I can find that. Um, let's see real quick. I'm looking at a box score to see if I can find that. See participants. Nicholson did play. Nicholson did play. And I'm not sure about Wesley or not. That is a good question, but Nicholson did play and didn't start for the Aztecs. Balin Brooks did start. Mekhi Shaw did start. Um, did you mention Nicholson? I just mentioned Nicholson. Yeah, Nicholson played but did not start for the Aztecs. Max, thank you again. He says, "What do you think of Hoke not electing to punt at the end? Had an opportunity to pin Ohio inside the 20 rather than giving them the ball around the 40 with a minute to play." I think there's a couple of factors that go into this, and he was asked about this postgame. If you want to find the video, I think it's on YouTube. If you find the Go Aztecs YouTube channel, I think you could find the full 16-minute clip of Brady Hoke and some student athletes, Mark Redman and Darius Barfield, following the win. And he was asked about this, and I only saw a brief note or 2 on this on social media. I haven't fully watched back that 16-minute video. I think there's a couple things that go into the thinking in that spot. One of which is, what if you have some type of issue on special teams? Botch snap, block punt, right? That's always a possibility. Also, what if you have a return? What if you have a penalty? So there's some things that can go wrong in that spot. You're in an interesting part of the field. You could pooch punt, obviously, with Jalen Mayden. You could elect to go for it, which obviously the team's going to love. They were very aggressive, I thought, in general, and it paid off late in the first half, the touchdown throw to Mark Redman. But overall, I thought they were very aggressive in the game. They had a 4th down run that was successful as well behind Jalen Armstead, I want to say. That was not an easy conversion that they picked up. So there were 3 or 4 very aggressive plays in this game. I think most of them worked out. They didn't pick it up. To your point, Max, maybe you're looking at, I think, maybe you're looking at a 15-yard swing. If the ball's in the end zone, they're at the 20, even if it's inside the 20, let's just say, they're starting at the 15-yard line, for example. So, yeah, there's a 20-yard swing. Is it the end-all, be-all there? Could it be the difference? It could have been the difference. But I guess the trust in the offense there as well. If you can pick it up, you've ended the game. If you don't pick it up, they still have to go 65 yards. And if you have an issue on special teams, you have a problem. I guess might be the way to potentially look at it. I think it's something certainly that could be discussed. Also, well, that ends well in this game for San Diego State. But yeah, there could have been a 15 or 20-yard swing potentially there if they had elected to punt the football as opposed to go for it. Aztec Breakdown, good to have you here live in the chat. I'm with you. I thought that there's a number of things here where there's room for improvement, but there's also a lot of things that I thought were pretty encouraging for a first game. You have Ryan Lindley calling plays for a first time as an offensive coordinator. Simple as that, right? And I thought he really got into a groove a little bit in the second half. Jalen Mayden maybe started a little bit slow as well, missed some throws. Really found his composure, I thought, late in the first half on that 2-minute drive. And that 2-minute drive off the turnover late in the first half really changed the complexion of the game. And that's where Mayden really showed off with his legs, with the throw to Shaw on the near sideline and the pretty grab, getting a foot down, and then ultimately Redman with 6 seconds left. They elect not to kick the field goal. It was over the middle. I thought it was a good throw, kind of against the grain a little bit to find Redman. But, yeah, they were more aggressive, I thought, in this one game, small sample size, than they were probably by and large in 2022. I think that's reasonable. And again, did it fully show? Is it 500 yards of offense? No. Is it 350 passing yards? No. But I thought overall, they showed us, more than just a little something specifically in the second half. Again, 308 yards, they did that a year ago in total offense. That's not a huge number, but they were balanced, 145 rush yards, 100, what, 70, 80 passing yards. There was balance, there was aggressiveness, and it just worked. And I thought it suited their defense really well. Enough aggressiveness coupled with the defense after a slow start as well, not creating a lot of pressure. Defense started creating pressure. It led to turnovers. They got to CJ Harris, and in the end, it led to a 20-13 win. Aztec breakdown following up, saying Redman getting 5+ catches should be one of the goals for every game. Worked against Ohio. Hopefully, they keep it up. I said in my bold predictions heading into the year, we did it on John and Jim. I had 3 of them, and one of mine was that Mark Redman was going to catch 50 balls this year after catching just 21 a year ago because of the fact that Ryan Lindley is going to utilize his tight ends. When you think about Ryan Lindley's pedigree, working under, Utah's offensive coordinator, the way they use tight ends, Redman's pass catching abilities, what he showed us at times in 2022, this was the perfect start for Mark Redman. This was the absolutely perfect start. And of course, you can't expect 5+ catches and 2+ touchdowns every single week. But if he's able to get 4 or 5 balls, and I think it's very reasonable, if he's able to get 4 or 5 balls, he's absolutely going to finish in that neighborhood of 40, 50, even more catches. And with 2 touchdowns in the opener, he's got a chance to have 8, 9, 10 touchdowns or more potentially in 2023. So yeah, Redmond's a huge weapon on offense, especially with these younger receivers that are going to have to emerge. Last year, you know, before you're finding your tight ends, you're looking to Shavers and Matthews, and those guys specifically in the second half under Jalen Mayden were open a lot. And as you went through your progression, you didn't necessarily need to find tight ends. But this year, I think the tight ends specifically early are going to be utilized because they don't have as much experience with those receivers, and they do have experience out of their backfield catching the football as well. We saw that a little bit on Saturday with Keenan Christian and Cam Davis as well. Colin, thank you for the comment. He says he was very impressed with Christian and Armstead Saturday. Christian can really extend plays and make something out of nothing. Great to have another stellar running back room this year. I love the running back room. A lot of this is going to be predicated on the offensive line. I thought the offensive line, as the game got going, improved as well in this game and really created some running lanes for Armstead on that impressive second half drive. I thought Christian, what impresses you most about Christian is that second gear. And when he finds a little bit of daylight, he's really able to use that speed to his advantage. He's able to get outside and get down the sideline, and he's tough to catch, right? Everyone knows about his history in the state, high school track champion, 100, 200, played at SC. And I think he's going to have a big year. I think Jalen Armstead will as well. And there's some other, contributors there in that running back room that are going to be impactful, hopefully, for San Diego State. I mentioned Cam Davis, obviously getting some opportunities for the Aztecs as well, Martin Blake. So, yeah, it's a very deep group. And a year ago, I mean, I don't think they had a runner for – they didn't have a rusher for, 500 yards a year ago, shockingly, when you consider the pedigree and the recent history of San Diego State running the football. That's going to change, obviously. It has to change in 2023. Max, thanks again. He says the big turning point for him was when they ran a play with 6 seconds left. I'm assuming Lindley advised Mayden to get rid of the ball before the clock hit 0 to still salvage a field goal, scored a touchdown, huge. I don't even know, Max, if they would have had a second if the ball was incomplete because when it was caught, the clock reached 0. And I agree with you. I think the plan was probably to run a 4 or 5 second play, drop back and quickly look to the end zone and deliver something in 4 or 5 seconds from about 10 yards out. And it worked out beautifully. And by the way, there's a lot of coaches that aren't probably electing to do that in that spot. I mean, Ohio on their first drive elected to kick a field goal from the 2-yard line on 4th down and not go for it. That was from the 10-yard line. They weren't at the 1. I think with 6 seconds left at the 1, well, yeah, you quickly throw something into the end zone, 1, 2, or 3-yard line. But from the 10, there's no guarantee you can run that play in 5 seconds. And, you consider how big of a momentum swing it was from down 6-3 to point lead into the locker room. And what does that say to the team that you're trusting them to come through in that spot? There's a lot to be learned from that. And I know Mark Redman was asked about that post-game, and he said, listen, the coaches have full trust in us. We have full trust in them because of moments like that. So I think it's a good way to start your season with a play like that you cash in on. So that worked out really well. And he agrees with Colin, says appears Aztecs have another solid 1-2 punch at running back. Armstead looks strong. Love how he runs hard. Yeah, it was hard for me to even be critical of him on the fumble. He had that first half fumble, and this is a classic fumble of like second, third effort results in the fumble. He was like stuck in the backfield, spun out of a tackle, spun out of another one, and then had the ball stripped away, like when he was 8 yards downfield. But that was all based on second, third effort and all like individual effort. So yeah, of course, you got to take care of the football. There's no question about that, and they can't afford turnovers, especially in the run game. But I'm pleased that they gave him more opportunities, and he took advantage of them, and he nearly ran for 10 yards a carry and 9.8, and he's gotta feel really good coming out of that game. He's probably less concerned about the turnover and the fumble and more, encouraged by what he did and the opportunities he had there in the second half. Caesar, thank you. I'm surprised it's the first comment we actually had on attendance, at Snapdragon Stadium. Thank you, Caesar. He says, "San Diego State will be embarrassed, and our aspirations to join a Power 5 conference will be dashed by the attendance of Snapdragon seats. TV perception is truth." Caesar, I appreciate the comment, but that won't be the case, and I can tell you as to why. San Diego State a year ago didn't sell out all their games in year one of Snapdragon Stadium, yet San Diego State was still on the doorstep of joining a Power 5 league literally 2 weeks ago, and if the Pac-12 didn't evaporate before our eyes, San Diego State would have gotten an invite 2 weeks ago. So it's not based on, it doesn't come down to any one thing. It really doesn't. It comes down to a myriad of things, most of which are outside of the control of, you know, me, you, even the athletic department, and the university's administration, right? I mean, there has to be a need and there has to be a place for San Diego State. And it's obviously been a crazy time when it comes to conference realignment. What's happened with the Pac 12? We'll see whether Cal and Stanford end up in the ACC, potentially with SMU. I know this about realignment is always evolving and changing. Um, and when the music stops right now, we'll see if San Diego State remains in the Mountain West, if something forms out of an Oregon State, Washington State hypothetical league. Do those teams join San Diego State in the Mountain West? Does a new group of 5 league emerge? Who even knows what's going to happen? Um, of course, they're concerned about drawing at Snapdragon Stadium. We've had JD Wicker on the radio. He's discussed the importance of supporting San Diego State athletics. It's a brand new stadium. They have obviously debt on the facility. So obviously their aspirations are to fill the venue as often as possible. And I think they'll have chances to do that. I really do this year. I think UCLA game, Boise State at home, Fresno State, right? I mean, there's plenty of opportunities for San Diego State to draw. And you may say, well, hold on, it's the opener. It was a nice afternoon. Why didn't they have more people in the building? It's also August 26th. It's also Ohio, not Ohio State. And I think you have to really be a college football fan to understand that Ohio came in off a 10-win season and had potentially an NFL caliber quarterback in their quarterback room in Curtis Rourke. So I thought the students were really encouraging. There had to be 7,000 San Diego State students. The show in the student section there on Saturday, and we'll see what it looks like. This weekend, Idaho State FCS team, 7:30 start time. Tickets are available at goaztecs.com. But it's not as simple as, hey, San Diego State didn't draw in week 0. They're not going to get to the Power 5. I mean, I watch a lot of college. You look at college football in the West, watch games in the West, and not every game is heavily attended, whether it's UCLA headed for the Big Ten, whether it's Cal or Stanford potentially headed for the ACC, University of Arizona, right? Isn't exactly drawing for their football games. Arizona State isn't selling out their football games. They're all headed for the Big 12. So there's a number of dynamics at play. This is what I do know about San Diego State conference realignment. They've won at a high level in football and men's basketball. They win a national championship game in basketball. They're located in the 8th largest city in the country, right? They've got a brand new campus in Mission Valley. There's a lot of reasons to believe that San Diego State's athletic future is bright. Now, some of this is outside of their control. And again, Snapdragon Stadium is a critical piece of San Diego State's future success. And there's no doubt that they envision, drawing at Snapdragon Stadium. There's no question about that. But I wouldn't base everything based on what we saw in this one game against Ohio on August 26th in terms of whether or not San Diego State is able to get into a Power 5 league or not moving forward. And we'll see what happens. And literally, I mean, the season has started, yet we still don't know what's going to happen with schools like Cal, Stanford, SMU, even potentially AAC Mountain West schools, Oregon State and Washington State as well. Well, let me get to a few more. Again, if you're watching this, whether it's live or on replay, really do appreciate those that are subscribing. Aztecs win over Ohio in week 6. Idaho State Bengals, brand new coaching staff, 29 new players in week 1. Brady Hoke saying they really don't have any film to watch, as Idaho State has not played as of yet and has a brand new head coach and coordinators. And we'll see what Saturday night at 7:30 brings. Michael's saying, offensively, our quarterback needs to find better chemistry with his receivers. Defensively, the front seven needs to improve. I think it's all fair, Michael, after game 1, I do. I think that's gonna come with time. I think that, front 6, 3, 5 is, a little bit of a new group. Cody Moon from New Mexico is the defensive player of the week. Jack Browning, by the way, is the special teams player of the week in the Mountain West. But you got Cody Moon, who's new, had 12 tackles in his debut, played in the 3-3-5 for Rocky Long at New Mexico, had over 100 tackles, played very well against San Diego State a couple times in his career, the former walk-on. You had, um, I thought they rotated in a lot of bodies there up front on the defensive line, which I thought maybe wore Ohio down a little bit there in the second half. Look at the totals here. I'm looking right now. Wyatt Drager, getting a start. Cooper McDonald, obviously, your linebacker. Garrett Fountain, I think, gonna have a big year for San Diego State. I thought the secondary was really good. Noah Tumblin, Devon Celestine, Barfield made some big plays. Dallas Branch as well. Um, let's see who had the, yeah, I'm just looking right now at who had the tackles for losses and who had the picks. Darius Barfield had a pick. New Zealand Williams had a pick. Again, I thought the freshman Aztec, Marcus Radcliffe played well, had that pick that was called back. So I'm not concerned about the defense. Yeah, how can you? I mean, look at San Diego State's history defensively under Brady and Rocky. I'm really not. Now again, they're replacing a ton up front, Tavai brothers. So they're replacing a ton up front. I mean, every starter in that 3-3-5 up front has been replaced. So I'm not saying they're going to get identical production, but there's reasons to believe San Diego State's defensively will be fine and better than fine potentially by the end of the year. A couple more here. Max saying Lindley turning to the screen pass really helped neutralize the Ohio pressure. I agree with that. Really think it helped keep them honest. I think helped open things up, the Aztecs run game and pass, honestly. Yeah, they used it effectively. I agree with you, Max, because Ohio was getting some pressure on Mayden early. I think they did neutralize that with the screen game. I think it's a really good point. Um, and it's a good point. The thing with quarterback play, the thing with running back success is, do you have time to throw and do you have lanes to run through? And I think early on, maybe that was an issue. And I think in the second half, the offensive line did a much better job. And maybe some of that credit goes to Ryan Lindley and his play calling as well. Sons of Montezuma, what's going on, man? Good to have you guys here. This is a great channel, by the way, for Aztec fans, Sons of Montezuma. You should subscribe and support. Find them on social media. They do outstanding work. Appreciate your support of the work I do. But Sons of Montezuma, again, is a great way to support Aztecs athletics. Make sure to find them wherever you are on social media. You can find them, including on YouTube. Saying it may not show up on the final scoreboard, but what a massive improvement Ryan Lindley is at play calling. This could be the start of reviving our quarterback culture at San Diego State. That was one of my bold predictions, actually, to start the year well, which isn't even that bold when you look at the way Jalen Mayden finished last year. He threw for 2,000 yards in his 7 starts, and I say he threw for something like 3,200 yards in 2023. Now he didn't throw for 200 yards in this game, so he'll need some games where he throws for 250 plus. Truthfully, at the end of the day, you just want to see this team win. But I agree with you. I thought that Lindley really got into a groove. 2-minute drive at the end of the first half, the scoring drive in the second half, the balance in the mix and the screen game to the point of Max from earlier. And again, this is only scratching the surface stuff. I mean, let's be honest. And again, this is Ohio defensively wasn't great a year ago. They returned a lot of starters. I think they returned 8 starters from a year ago. I think there's room for growth with Idaho State coming here. What do we see next week against Idaho State from this offense? Hopefully more opportunities for the Aztecs to build on what we saw in week 1, and then hopefully a level of confidence and a level of comfort after 2 games when you get UCLA here in week 2 at 4:30, which of course will be the stiffest test of the year for the Aztecs to date. And yeah, in terms of quarterback culture, yeah, 1,000%. I mean, the all-time leading passer at San Diego State is now the offensive coordinator. His playing and coaching pedigree, I think is really, really encouraging. And we'll see what it means on the recruiting trail or in the transfer portal, but it can only mean positives. We do know that. Michael agrees, by the way, with you. Robbie agrees, right? So, yeah, I think and that's what I said going in, and, I'll kinda leave everyone with this. That's what I said heading into the season. What excites me most is the opportunities in front of this offense with Ryan Lindley now calling plays. Not that it's the end all be all. He's not playing games, and, do they have all the pieces that they need to ultimately run the offense that he wants to run? We're gonna find that out over the course of the season, and I think they'll have, plenty of more opportunities to run this offense the way they envision it as they continue to recruit into this offense, right? 12 personnel, a lot, 1 running back, 2 tight ends. But I think they do have the personnel to have success in that offense with the stable of running backs they have, with the tight ends, with the Mark Redmans, with the Jay Rudolphs, and with some of the returnees they have at receiver, Breon Penny, Kai Shaw, what we saw from Braylon Brooks. We'll see about Wesley. We'll see about Nicholson. But I think they have the parts that they need to be successful on offense this year. So I think it really is exciting. And hopefully they can grow on what they did in week 1 in game 2 against Idaho State. Sons of Montezuma, thank you, man. Really do appreciate it. I'll do what I can do. I know you're doing what you can do. But there's never been a better time to be around San Diego State athletics, has there? There's never been a better time for football and men's basketball and facilities, etc. Okay. We're gonna be back. We're gonna be doing this week in and week out following San Diego State football games. We'll be doing it, of course, during the men's basketball season as well. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, I would appreciate it. Please subscribe to this channel. You can follow me on Twitter as well at John Schaefer. Please smash the like button on this as well. We'll talk much more about it, by the way, coming up at 3 p.m. on San Diego Sports 760. John and Jim, my daily radio show from 3 to 6 on San Diego Sports 760, breaking down San Diego State's Game 1 victory over Ohio University. Until next time, my name's John Schaefer, and you've been watching The Wrap-Up Show.